As several of our students are working from home now, particularly with COVID-19 becoming such a big part of our culture here in the United States and elsewhere throughout the world, I've got a video for each of the Kyu ranks, but those videos are just kind of refresher reminder videos. We don't go into really a lot of detail in those. This video and some further videos that I'm going to be doing are going to be some detailed work for Kyu rank requirements for our school. Kyu ranks a lot of times are just overwhelmed with lots of information, and it's very common in a dojo for an instructor to be kind of like an overwhelmed parent, and when students start asking why, it's just do it the way I say, just because I said so. So this particular video is going to go into some more details, particularly things that Taika stressed on us in headquarters class and private classes at his residence. These are things that were his pet peeves with Kyu rank items, as well as things that inevitably rolled downhill and became some of my pet peeves. So a lot more details, and this first session is going to be solely about the hand techniques. Hand strikes, a lot of people might call some of these blocks, but we call them all strikes. So here we go. So the first thing that I want to really talk about is essentially the brachial plexus tie-in. And then we have the soft little area right here where the hips tie into the torso, where the arms tie into the torso. So we have these little dots. And I liken these to learning to shoot a gun, to shoot a bow and arrow, to throw darts, to throw knives, anything where you're aiming for a target. I use this box system. This is the area that we're going to use during basic renshu or exercises, kata, and just generally learning how to put things in the correct position. Imagine you're going shooting or throwing darts. You've got a target that you aim at. If you're learning to throw darts initially, you've got a nice round target with several rings and a bullseye in the center. If you are shooting a gun on a range or archery target, it's pretty much the same thing. You've got something that you focus on and try to hit exactly every single time. And that's what we're doing with this box. Essentially, when we're doing these initial requirements, kata, renshu, there are targets that we are aiming for every time to get precise. We do this usually in a static way when we're first learning to put hands in positions. Then we learn to do movement with it. So that's kind of like you learn to shoot, for those of you that are in an environment where you actually have used guns in your life, whether you're going hunting or just recreational. You learn to shoot, you put a silhouette out there on the range, you shoot for a specific spot, and you hit that continually. Now later on, you try to learn to track and shoot moving targets. So that's what you get a lot more in like stage 2 of renshu exercises and kata. You're learning to aim at a moving target. So right now I'm just going to talk about, this is the primary rectangle, which is the torso, that we're learning to put hand placements in, as well as there is another smaller box or rectangle up here. So when I am doing my initial techniques Here we're going to work on 9th Kyu requirements, single, double, head initially, and punch. There'll be high outside and some other techniques that you'll learn at this stage. But I want to go into some of the details and some of Taika's pet peeves with this. I'm going to cover single, double, head. A lot of people call these blocks. They have an outside block, they have an inside block, they have double blocks, they have head blocks. We call them forearm strikes because initially at this 9th Kyu level, we're teaching you to strike with your forearm. Now keep in mind, later on there'll be lots of things where we do an initial motion wherever it's at. I might strike with the thumb side, radial side of my forearm. I might strike with the ulnar side, the pinky side. I might actually do this exact same motion, striking with that knuckle, this knuckle, the entire back of the fist. There's numerous things that can be going on other than just forearm. But that's how you're initially learning it at 9th Kyu. Single, double, head. Also single, double, face. Those were some of the names you heard. Rising, forearm strike, etc. Single. All three of these, single, double, head, have three initial ways that we practice them in the dojo. First way is our initial reactionary way of striking. First way is our initial reactionary way of striking, and there is no crossing, there's no motion going towards the outside. It is coming straight up. So here's a single. I'm coming straight up into that position. Now my goal is this dot. When I come straight up, I want this knuckle to be placed right there and my hand to be at a 45-degree angle. So I want it there. I want it to land there. So I'm probably going to use a mirror when I'm first learning these things and learning to aim. I'm getting this at a 45-degree. Now the question is, why 45? This was one of Taika's big pet peeves, and he harped on people in class on a regular basis on this. 45, we can do it vertical punch, vertical fist, and we can do it the opposite 45 like you see in the Hanshi Shodan. Okay? If you go beyond 45, you start getting torque here, as well as some issues here. You create tightness, stiffness, and increase the likelihood of injury. So when we come up, our initial reactionary way of doing this is we're coming straight up. This is our primary hand that we're striking with. We will do a cover motion. So there's always two motions with every one of these forearm strikes that we do. So I have a straight motion and an angled cover. Primary, support. This is at a 45. It is not, I'm not twisting and locking my body up. I'm keeping that at a 45. Again, my goal at this stage is learning to aim. I'm trying to be accurate, have all of my alignments where they need to be, and put that knuckle where that dot is every single time. Primary, support. So primary is the striking arm, and you notice I'm not going in this zone with this reactionary version of the single. Big question, why am I not covering my body? This initial reactionary way of doing the single, your body is covered, and I'll turn it this angle, my body is covered. As this comes straight up center, my body turns. So I get the overlapping cover of what I'm trying to protect from body motion from the bottom feet. My feet are turning my body. Let's go back to this square. So this is a box, not just a thin tube. So the box extends out in front of me. If I'm at an angle and I turn to my target, depending on my stance, that box shifts. So my reactionary comes straight up, straight up, straight up, straight up. I'm getting hand in a 45, knuckle is matching where my dot is. Arm spacing. If I make a fist and put it under my armpit and drop that down till it touches, that is how far out I want this. I want this arm out away from my body, not in close to my body. I want it out. So a good way to do that is to just put your armpit, place your armpit underneath, thumb right up into that crease, and then just let this drop until you feel your hand, your fist on that tricep. Okay? Now my knuckle is in the right place and I've got my arm stretched out far enough. Also with that, I do not want that knuckle will be lined up perfectly with that brachial plexus tie-in if this arm is past 90 degrees. So here to here, that's about 90 degrees. I don't want it there. I want it dropped down. 90 degrees and less is easy to push back. Just plus 90 is difficult. I can structurally resist pushing back if I'm at 90 plus. When I come up, I do not come up to cover the face. Taika said there were only 3 covers in Okinawan Te: single, double, face. We'll get to face later. This motion, whether I'm coming around or straight up, comes up to this point. It is coming up or it is coming up. Taika said 2 things is that every person on this planet easily, naturally, reactively, and instinctively covers are your face and your groin. So if this is coming up and I sense that threat, just a mere open of the hand and turn of the body can cover the face if needed. This is designed to cover the body. And you'll see this in Nahanchi Shodan, Nahanchi Nidan, Nahanchi Shandan. It's doubles, singles, they're in all of your kata. Taika said, do not bring it up over the shoulders. Leave it there. In a thread, you're going to naturally, because you're already coming up, be able to continue. You have to stop to hit the brachial plexus. It's natural to go on up and cover if needed. You don't even have to think about it. The second way we practice covers is with the windmill analogy. So this is when I may go across the body, I may come a little bit more from the outside of the body. And the reason is just natural logistics. I can't just go here and then return here. If I do a natural single and then do windmill back to a single, that's the second way we do things. So I do a single reactionary and then follow-up windmill is the second way we do covers. And that is typically the way that most schools start out. They put you in a horse stance and you're doing the follow-through. This is your second technique. You wouldn't start going here. You start in Oyata's system, flinging out away from your body, and then you may do that secondary version. Third way that we commonly do these are coming from a different cover, a different motion. So maybe I'm in a face. Instead of just coming straight down to a back fist, I may come down because I'm here, I'm moving, and I'm dropping into that stance. Double forearm strikes. Though we call them forearm strikes, because very typically we are using these, and initially the first techniques you will learn here at this school, you're striking with your forearms, doing various motions. We concentrate on doing these doubles, thinking about the knuckles going forward. So my motion, initial primary motion, coming from a reactionary position, is I'm striking out straight to the target like that. So here I am, primary. Now, if I want to do the secondary, following into something else after the primary reactionary motion, then I go across. I go across. Now, the key point to that is I'll do a little squeeze to get my hands in a position where I can fling them back out, away from my body, and I'm trying to strike that knuckle forward and strike that forward at the same time. So here we are, primary reactionary, and then secondary. And then obviously if I'm in a different position, that's a third way that you can strike. One of Taika's pet peeves was outside motion. If you're thinking very much of two things, of flattening your fist, and if you think too much about the outward motion of your forearm, of the radial side bone going sideways, you're going to end up with what we call disco dancing, right? I don't want to be disco dancing. I want to be directing kinetic energy forward to my lovely box, my lovely dots on the corners of the box. All right, so single, primary reactionary double, and we would do this normally turning our bodies. For class purposes, I'm here. One of Taika's pet peeves, 45s with your hands. It's like if I'm holding a stick, it should be going 45 across my body. If I'm holding a stick in this hand, it should be going 45 across my body. Again, if we start doing this, you see what you can see in my shoulders as I try to go here. Some uncomfortable stuff. If you visualize that spine, there's like an S starting here because I'm trying to go flat. The angle of that radial bone as it comes up should be going up at an angle, cutting up, not out. Flattening my wrist to 90 creates spinal curve. It messes up the shoulder, messes up my balance, makes all this tight, particularly right here. Wait till you're older and you get golfer's elbow. That impact will hurt you. So think knuckle forward when doing that secondary style striking. Now there's two ways we can do that. This windmill version, we can do it alternating, or we can do it windmill to where it's going one direction, so many reps, the other direction, so many reps. So primary reactionary version would come out. Now, very typical, you would go this way and this way. This way, this way. We don't want to necessarily do that all the time. It's a good way to maybe get some practice in and figuring out your points. But what we want to do is more like Taika's windmill motion. So if I'm going counterclockwise, I go counterclockwise, counterclockwise. Then I go clockwise, 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 clockwise. And then of course the third way you can do it is coming from some other technique. So if we practice this in a more defense-orientated, a more realistic manner, what we're probably going to do is if we throw, our first throw of a double will come from a motion where we're coming straight up, straight out. There's our first. And then I'm continuing clockwise, 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 clockwise as I do that motion. Head, face. These are the two ways we commonly heard it, head, face. Sometimes people would say upper or rising. We would say forearm, rising forearm strike, upper forearm strike. Taika would normally say face, sometimes he would say head. But the whole idea is you're clearing the neck and the head. It is not a downforce block of blunt trauma. That is not normally what we associate this with in Taika's art. Your primary reactionary way of getting into this is I'm coming up and I come up and I cross right about the chin and flip up. That's your primary reactionary way of doing this motion. This hand is about a 45-degree angle. So I'm coming up about the hand reaches the chin, I flip. That's your primary reactionary way. Now, of course, as we do that, we are turning our body to do it, and we don't like a dead hand, so we do an extra cover in there. Now, from a secondary position where we've already engaged, our hands are already up, I'll go from a kata position here. I'm here at my ribs, nice and relaxed shoulder. I'm coming up, crossing and flipping. So I may do that kake motion, that hidden strike there. When I come back, if I'm going to come back, instead of coming to here, Taika would say, add a strike and come back up. In kata and exercises, sometimes we go back and forth, doing the same thing, trying to build up reps. Those are, you're not going to be in a fight situation where you're constantly doing neck strikes. You're going to come down and most likely do something else. But to get reps in, we will cover, 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 as this is coming. This hand that's coming up is hiding underneath this elbow and then goes up. This motion can be attributed to neck strikes, to certain tuite techniques, etc. Single. Single, this arm, if I bend over, you see the upper portion of my arm from my shoulder to here is perpendicular to my shoulders, to my torso. Same with double. Because that left arm hasn't changed at all. It's still in the exact same position. When I do an upper motion, if you look at that structure, that upper arm is perpendicular to the body. All of these cover motions, no matter which direction I'm going, this portion, whether it's an upper, single, or even the bottom portion of a double, is perpendicular. I don't squeeze. Do not squeeze. I do not come center line unless it's in transition to something else. So when I'm in this double position, you look at it from the side, my upper arm matches my upper arm. I'm not, and I'm not here. These two upper arms should match. The elbows should be essentially in the same location. So if I come down, my upper arm's not really, it has to move a little bit there. It has to, the elbow has to go out just a little bit so that this clears. If it doesn't, I can't get my arm out and around. It goes out and back in, but the upper arms are matching. Your doubles. So people will tell you that I'm doing this wrong because I'm not on this completion, I am not covering my groin. But they're failing to see the three-dimensional and the motion aspect to this. So right now, my bottom hand, someone may say, I am not covering my groin. Am I covering my groin? Nothing with the top of my body changed, but when my footwork changes, I cover the groin. Taika would say, do not sacrifice your structure to cover your groin or your face, right? If I want to cover my face, I don't want to go across to cover my face. That leads to tightness, all sorts of problems. This, I've already talked about, this upper arm perpendicular to my torso. It's perpendicular to my torso. If I want to go from a single or a double to cover the face, that's the motion I do, is I just come up. Am I covering my face? Not from that perspective, but from this perspective, yes. So if I want to cover my face and I'm coming straight up into a single, that's a natural motion. The sensing a threat and coming a little bit higher is natural. Trying to switch directions and go across is not natural. That just doesn't work. This works. Now I covered my face. Same with groin. When I do my double, coming across is going to bind and mess up my structure. And that actually makes my strike weak and sets me up for somebody doing an arm bar or something on me. So if I want to come straight out and cover my groin, that's how I cover my groin. I don't do it by sacrificing my structure. When we do our single, double, and low, all of these are at that 45-degree angle. One of Taika's biggest pet peeves over the years in class. 45, 45, he would yell. At times, we will do vertical fist, and times we will do the opposite 45. So you have 45, 90, 45, and obviously that's one that we do both of those in Nahanchi. Here, here. High knuckle strike is a version that covers the face, and it's a vertical fist. We do several vertical fists in Rinchu Daiichi, or exercise 1. One of these is striking with these two knuckles, basically right around the zygomatic. This side of the face is where our target is. So we're going to go up initially. Again, we're going to do everything straight up the first time. We can add that cover in there. And we're going to go up to here. Well, it doesn't look like it's going across my face. It's not going across my face. So how is it going across my opponent's face? Well, there. I'm now on the opposite side of my opponent's face. However, when I do that motion and now I turn back straight, you see I'm in a vertical fist. The upper part of my arm is perpendicular to my body. I'm not going across to get that knuckle strike. I am going straight up, and this one kind of flexes out a little bit as I go up. And I do that motion with the turn of the body. Now it's on my opponent's opposite side of their face, striking. But I have the integrity of the rectangle.